But you look at that, and they were right on top of each other, large numbers, pretty large numbers, and they were right on top of each other. And nobody complained. When you look at fake CNN, it's total fake. It's a fake news operation. And it's really like an extension of the Democrat Party. And then you look at MSDNC, which is DNC, Democrat National Committee, and you look at it, and you see the way they talk. They never mention that. They don't talk about it. This is all you hear about Oklahoma, what we're doing. We'll be in Tulsa. You have a great mayor, and you have a great governor. Governor Stitt, I spoke to him yesterday. They're so excited about it that you have no idea. And we have had so many sign-ups. You know, there are lines of people now, and we won't be there for 3 days. They have lines of people right now trying to get into the arena. I mean, they'll be there. They'll be early.
How many people
signed up? They'll be in one of those early front rows.
How many people signed up? Do you know?
Over 1 million people requested tickets. Well, there's just a hunger for the rallies, and I enjoy doing them, but they enjoy them more importantly than me. They enjoy them. It gives energy to everybody, and we have tremendous enthusiasm. If you look at the polls, we're way ahead of Sleepy Joe in terms of enthusiasm. We have enthusiasm like they've never seen before, actually, and Joe has the lowest, I hear, enthusiasm on record. Now, they have a party, and the party believes in a lot of bad things. Open borders, sanctuary cities. Open borders, think of it. Supposing like at Tijuana, we're up to 212 miles of wall. And this is serious wall, and I'm going to be at the wall very soon. We're going to celebrate over 200, but it's 212 miles now. Nobody is getting through. And very, very few people are coming through on our border. We have a tremendous border. But think of it, in Tijuana, Tijuana, Mexico, it's one of the most infected places on earth. And we have a wall between Tijuana and San Diego. You know, it's like a beautiful, very powerful wall. And California is very happy that we have it, because they wouldn't have any numbers. They would have numbers like you wouldn't believe right now if we didn't have that. So we've done a great job. We were very early to the call, as you know, because you're one person that reports it. But when we heard about it, I made the decision not to let people from China come in. We love people from China, but they were having a tremendous problem. And at the end of January, I said, you can't come in. You can't come in. And we saved tens of thousands, and everybody, even our critics, give me credit for that. But we saved tens of thousands of lives. And then I banned Europe from coming in, because Europe, many of the people that couldn't come here went to Italy, and they went to Spain and France, and we had to ban Europe, and we did that fairly shortly thereafter. So we've been very early, and our testing has been phenomenal, and we came up with ventilators that we're the kings of ventilators. We're making thousands of ventilators a week. All our people have one. Not one person that needed a ventilator has not gotten one. Every single person that needed a ventilator got one, and it's been incredible. Now we're helping other countries, because it's hard to make. They're expensive, and they're big, and they're very highly complex. And we're helping other countries. Many other countries, we're sending them ventilators.
Let me ask you, it was 10 days after the first identified case of corona in the U.S. when you had the travel ban. We hadn't had a quarantine in 50-plus years, in my understanding. And the subsequent travel bans, you were called racist, xenophobic, hysterical, fear-mongerer. That was 10 days after the first case here. I'm told, according to my sources, that everybody that was advising you didn't think it was necessary. The models were wrong, predictions were wrong, all the way around. I don't know why they've been so wrong. China lied. What made you, at that moment, make that one decision? Because that seems critical to me.
Well, I was seeing information that China, Wuhan in particular, was very heavily infected. And I just said, look, why are we doing this? And let's see. And nobody knew anything about it at that time. We didn't know it affected the elderly much more so than children. That's why we have to open our schools in the fall. The children, the numbers are very, very small, almost non-existent. And it's an incredible thing. Their immune system is very strong. And so we have to get the schools open, and I'm sure they'll be open. I think most of them, if people are doing the right thing, they're going to be opening up schools. You have to have it. Too much of a strain in many ways, and unfair to the children. but I just felt it was a heavily infected area, and how are we letting people into our country? Nobody knew that it was going to be that contagious. It's a highly contagious. There's been nothing like this since 1917, over 100 years ago, where probably anywhere from 50 to 100 million people died. Probably ended World War I because all the soldiers, they were so sick. And it probably, that was the one thing. It ended World War I, very likely. But nobody had any idea it was going to be this kind of contagious. It has been really rough. But we've learned a lot, and we're doing really great in the laboratories. And we're going to have a vaccine very soon.
John Bolton, who worked for you, has a book, and in that book he's claiming that you asked China for help with your re-election. Your trade representative, by the way, the U.S. trade representative is now just came out with a statement claiming that is false and denies it. There were just recently released documents tonight and affidavits that says the NSC has determined that the information in the manuscript is classified as confidential, secret, top secret levels. Accordingly, the publication release of the room where it happened would cause irreparable harm because the disclosure of instances of classified information in the manuscript reasonably could be expected to cause serious damage or exceptionally grave damage to the national security of the United States. I went back, I think it was a month before he was fired, and I have a whole series of articles. I don't have time for them all. In an interview with my former fellow colleague, Greta Van Susteren, Bolton said, I think one thing you could be sure of, this is just before he got fired, is President Trump's not going to make the mistakes of prior administrations here that succumb to the idea that if you give them economic benefits, you automatically count on them for following through with their commitments. He said on your views on Russia, the president gets criticized for being soft on Russia. I'm still waiting to see evidence of that. He's authorized us to take very strong action against election meddling by anybody, strong action against intrusions into our information technology systems by countries like Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran. What is your reaction to this charge and this claim of the president, and what now the government is saying basically it's compromising national security is the way I interpret that?
Well, first of all, nobody has been tougher on Russia or China than I have. Nobody even close. China's paying us billions of dollars a year. They never gave us 10 cents, and Biden's son walked away with $1.5 billion to manage, making hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars on it. So nobody has been tough on China, and nobody has been tough on Russia like I have. And that's in the record books, and it's not even close. The last administration did nothing on either. And then in terms of Bolton, he broke the law. He was a washed-up guy. I gave him a chance. He couldn't get Senate confirmed, so I gave him a non-Senate confirmed position where I could just put him there, see how he worked. And I wasn't very enamored. He went into the Middle East. He was one of the big guns for let's go into Iraq, and that didn't work out too well, and I was against that a long time ago before I was ever even thinking about doing what I'm doing now. But he was one of the people who wanted to go to Iraq. When I asked him about it, I said, you know, about a month in, when he was about a month in, I said, what do you think? Do you think you made a mistake there? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I said, explain that one. So the terrible thing that he did. But he broke the law. Very simple. I mean, as much as it's going to be broken, this is highly classified. That's the highest stage. It's highly classified information. And he did not have approval. That's come out now very loud and very strong. And I appreciate Ambassador Lighthizer in front of a committee today on an unrelated topic. They asked him that question. One of our friends in the Democrat Party was very nice to ask him the question. And then he said, absolutely not. Trump was tough on China, but nobody's been tough like me. Nobody's been tough like me on China. We're taking in right now billions and billions of dollars from China. I gave a lot of it to the farmers because the farmers were targeted by China. Nobody's ever done that.
Wasn't it $500 billion for just 2 years alone, if I remember the first part of the deal? Not insignificant, and all the other trade deals. Let me go. One thing that kind of was interesting to me, everybody knows your opinion on the anthem and kneeling, and you've been very outspoken about it, but comments you made on Colin Kaepernick about if he deserves to play in the NFL, if he has the playing ability, if he, and you're right, he did start off, by the way, as a great quarterback. I mean, actually amazing couple of years. You say didn't end up in terms of being as good a player in some of his later years, but you said he was terrific his first 2 years, and then he wasn't playing up to snuff. You said the answer is absolutely. I would, love to see him get another shot. And obviously he has to play well. If he can't, no, but you would like to see him get another shot. I found that interesting.
Yeah, if he has the ability. Look, he can only get it if he has the ability. They're not going to lose games because of, wanting to be politically correct or whatever term you might, I don't know if that's politically correct or the opposite. But if he has the ability, look, he was a great rookie, and his second year was great. And then after that, he started going downhill rather rapidly, and then he was out of football, and then he started suing everybody. And I think he made a lot more money doing that than he did with football. But it was, if he has the ability, somebody would take him. I think, look, I know a lot of these owners. If they had somebody that was going to win games, they'll sign him. It doesn't matter who they are. They'll sign him. And, I don't like also relatively another subject, but I figure it's your next question. When the national anthem plays and our flag, the great American flag, is raised, you should not be kneeling. You should be standing, ideally with your hand on your heart or saluting, but they should not be kneeling. They can protest enough, and I saw the NFL get very weak. I saw Drew Brees, who's a warrior, a great quarterback, a fan of his. I'm a fan of his, and I saw him make this beautiful statement, and then the next day he retracted the statement. He talked about his father and his grandfather fighting in the war for our country, our flag, and then the next day he retracted it. I just don't get that. But you have to stand when the flag goes up, and I think they'll lose a lot of fans and a lot of support in the NFL. It already happened before. I thought they learned their lesson, but I think it's going to happen again. And I was surprised at Roger Goodell that he would have done what he did and made the statement that he made. Nobody was even asking for it.
Let me go back to COVID and the economic recovery. You did mention, just like the coronavirus models, predictions, they were so off base. I mean, shockingly so. But with all of that said, and nobody predicted, they were predicting, I think it was a 9 million job loss in May, and you ended up gaining 2.5 million. Then you had a record retail sales at 18%. We see in a Gallup poll that you're doing better even now on this issue than Obama ever did at any point of his presidency. How worried are you about, well, we know it's when, not if, in terms of hotspots emerging, and we've now been dealing with them. How confident are you that we're able to get on them quick enough so that we don't ever find ourselves in a position again to have to shut down, a big portion of the economy in the country? And that would be, again, the cure can't be worse than the disease, right?
Well, we'll get on it. That's right. My original statement, the cure can't be worse than the disease itself. And we'll get on it quickly. We're working with 50 governors, some of whom are really outstanding, like in Oklahoma, as an example. We're working with the governors, and we're working with local representatives and mayors, and we're supplying them what they need, including the ventilators. Now we don't need any, no matter what. We have that taken care of. We're in great shape to put out I used to call them the embers, or the flames. They flare up in certain areas a little bit, but I think we'll put them out very quickly, and we won't be closing the country again. We won't have to do that. But at the beginning, I tell you, if we didn't do what we did, we made all the right moves, Sean, we would have lost anywhere from probably 1.5 minimum. Now you have to understand that's 10 times what we're talking about now, 10 times. Think of that, with all the loss, multiplied times 10, that's at a minimum, and you could have gone up to 3.5 or more million people, and that's many times more. So we closed it. We also learned a lot about it, who it attacks. It attacks different people, but it doesn't attack the young, as we said, but it does attack senior citizens, older people, especially if they have a problem with their heart, if they have diabetes. They get attacked violently by this horrible disease. China should have kept it where it was. They could have easily stopped it. They either lost control, they either suffered great incompetence, something happened, or I don't know. The worst thing would be is if they knew this was going to happen, because other than just tonight, I heard, and yesterday, it hit Beijing to a certain extent, and we'll see what happens there. Just hit Beijing. But other than that, they've kept it inside, and, except when it came to letting it hit the rest of the world.
Only 139 days till Election Day. Reince Priebus was on the show the other night saying maybe you and Joe Biden, if he gets out of his basement, can have more than the usual 3 debates that a president would have. Would you like that, and or do you like it the way it is? Do you have any fear that Joe's going to try and duck him? We only have 30 seconds, sir.
Yeah, I would frankly like it. I can tell you who'd like it. His television would like it. Your companies would like it. But I would say that would be fine if they'd like to do it. I'm open to whatever they want to do, Sean. Get the word out.
Thank you, sir, for being with us. We appreciate it. Really troubling times, but we'll get through it. We're Americans. Thank you, sir. All right.
Thank you very much, Sean.
Hello.
Rosenstein, thank you very much for coming to the committee voluntarily, and we appreciate your service to our country and your participation in the hearing today. And I'll try to do a pretty short opening statement, Senator Feinstein, then we'll get right to the witness. So why are we here? I think we have a clip that I'd like to play now. This is of Mr. Rosenstein, May 1st, 2018.
It really does illustrate, though.
Wait a minute. Turn it up. Stop.
The distinction between the way we operate in the department. We make mistakes. That's not to say we're flawless, but the way we operate in the Department of Justice, if we're going to accuse somebody of wrongdoing, we have to have admissible evidence, credible witnesses. We will be prepared to prove our case in court, and we have to affix our signature to the charging. That's something that not everybody appreciates. There's a lot of talk about FISA applications. And many people that I see talking about it seem not to recognize what a FISA application is. A FISA application is actually a warrant, just like a search warrant. In order to get a FISA search warrant, you need an affidavit signed by a clear federal officer who swears that the information in the affidavit is true and correct to the best of his knowledge and belief. And that's the way we operate. And if it's wrong, sometimes it is, if you find out there's anything incorrect in there, that person is going to face consequences. Sometimes there are innocent errors, but if not, you can face discipline or potentially even prosecution. So.
Well, thank you. That was delivered at the Freedom Forum by Mr. Rosenstein in May of 2018, and you described the way the system's supposed to work. And what brings us here is the fact it didn't work that way. We know now, based on the Horowitz report that was delivered to this committee in December 2019, that the FISA warrant application process did not work the way Mr. Rosenstein described it in 2018. What do we know? We know that exculpatory information was withheld from the court. We know, according to Mr. Horowitz, without the Steele dossier, paid for by the Democratic Party, prepared by a former British agent working with a Russian subsource, without that dossier, there would have been no warrant issued against Carter Page. We also now know that an email was doctored to get the FISA warrant by a lawyer at the FBI. So why are we here? We're trying to find out how that happened. We're trying to find out how Crossfire Hurricane got so awful. And our desire is to make sure it never happens again. Every American should be concerned by the fact that the Inspector General found criminal wrongdoing, abuse of power, and a warrant application against Carter Page, a advisor to the Trump campaign, and we're here to try to find out who knew what when. Find out, did Mr. Rosenstein, did you know that the subsource disavowed the dossier in January 2017 to the FBI? It says a bunch of bar talk and hearsay. Did you know that the FBI lawyer doctored an email showing a relationship between Mr. Page and the CIA. He changed it where there was no relationship. Did you know that? And if you did know it, why? And we're going to ask everybody who signed the warrant, did you know? And if you didn't know, why? And now that you do know, how do you feel about it? And I want the country to understand that the Mueller investigation was allowed to go forward with bipartisan support. I remember Senator Coons and Booker coming to me, and Senator Grassley and Senator Tillis saying, let's make sure that Mueller can do his job without interference. The president was pretty hot when it came to the Mueller investigation, and we came up with legislation to protect the general counsel from being dismissed without cause. To let the country know, let the president know, it was important for Mueller to do his job. Now it's important to find out what the hell happened. How could it have gotten to be where it wound up being? What evidence, if any, was there in May of 2017 when Mueller was appointed by Mr. Rosenstein that anybody on the Trump campaign was colluding with the Russians? Was there a lawful predicate to appoint Mueller to begin with? And we'll be looking at that. And we'll be looking at how the warrant was signed over and over by the highest ranking officials in this country and given to a FISA court on 4 different occasions over a period of months. And it was full of lies and criminally altered. I hope you want to know that. I sure do. And you got to remember, the people running the Mueller investigation are the same people that were running Crossfire Hurricane, at least until they got fired. So the warrant application that Mr. Rosenstein signed in June of 2017, the last application against Carter Page, who prepared the application? Remember Strzok and Page? March 3rd, 2016. God, Trump is a loathsome human being. Strzok, oh my God, he's an idiot. Strzok, God, Hillary should win 100 million to nothing. These are the people in charge of the Mueller investigation. The FBI lawyer who altered the email after the election said, Viva la resistance. This is the FBI lawyer in charge of overseeing the Mueller investigation.